This video I want to add a little bit of substance about this new bill which is going on, just to fill in a little bit more information. Okay, and the way I find out about it, you can go search for Police Crime Sentencing and Courts Bill. There's two things. The first one is the UK Parliament website, which kind of outlays the whole thing, and then the second one is the government website, which also outlays the whole thing. Now, the government website is obviously written by the government, and so that kind of shows you what they're saying and doing about it. It gives you a fact sheet and an overview. Obviously it's very long to read an entire piece of legislation because it's very long, but you've got, like, I was reading it yesterday, I read the overarching facts, and this sounds like a politician, a classic politician talking, and actually I think that Priti Patel probably did write this herself, or one of her underlings anyway. But it says, what are we going to do? Back our police by equipping officers with the powers and tools they need to keep themselves and all of us safe. Introduce tougher sentencing for the worst offenders and end automatic halfway release from prison for serious crimes. Improve the efficiency of the court and tribunal system by modernising existing court processes. How are we going to do it? I'm not going to go into this. You can look at it if you're interested. It doesn't take very long to read this. It's just the sort of front page. But this is what I read before I spoke earlier on in the last post. Basically, you see their approach to public safety is to just make harsher policing, stronger policing and harsher punishments. Again, it doesn't actually attack the underlying issues. Anyway, all I'm getting at, I wanted to show you this just because if you're interested, go and have a look yourself, because this is interesting, I think. I'll turn this around a little bit. Now, this is the Parliament website. This is not written by the government, but this shows you where the bill is. It's in the Commons, and it's got a little egg timer on it, so it shows you that it's in the Commons, then it's going to go to the Lords, and then it's going to go to the final stage where it gets signed off by Her Majesty. If you look down, it's got the long title, It's also worth bearing in mind that this is a broad piece of legislation, so it isn't specifically about one or two issues. There's a lot of stuff in here, so it shouldn't all just be universally condemned or attacked. It's just, this is how you can inform and educate yourself on what's actually happening. Take it from the source. This is the Parliament website. And it's just a useful tool because, as you can see, can you see? It says second reading. You see? First reading, second reading, committee stage, reporting stage, third reading, and then it will go to the House of Lords, and then it will go to the Royal Assent. This is the process of our Parliament. Oops. This is what you learn about when you study politics at school, or at college, to be honest with you. It's basic. It has reading stages where they read it in the Parliament, then they talk about it, they debate it, they say, what about that, how's that going to work, da 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 da. They'll amend it a bit, change it, bring it back, have another reading, and then committee stage is where these little groups outside the Parliament look at it, focus on it, write notes or comments and what have you, then it will get changed and adjusted again. And then eventually it goes through the third reading. Once that happens, then it goes to the House of Lords where it all happens again. Now, there can be a little bit of a tit for tat between these two, like the House of Lords might knock it back to Parliament, they'll change it and it'll go back to the Lords, da 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 da. But that can only happen 3 times. So by the time the House of Lords is done with it, the Parliament pushes it through and then it gets signed. There are considerations from the royal side of it, but usually it just gets signed off. Now, this is the thing about having a majority in government, in Parliament, is that you can get it through no matter what. So at the moment, the majority What did we find out this morning? Majority of Tories today is here it is. So you've got 365 in the Conservatives and 200 in Labour and 47. So you can see that the Conservatives have got a comfortable majority. Now that means that nothing that the opposition groups do or say means anything. And Priti Patel has said this morning they are going to push through with it. And so that means it is going to become a law within the next day or so. And you know, that's something that we should be thinking about and being aware of. And that's what there's a protest at the moment outside Parliament about this very thing. And you know, this is what's happening right now. What was that thing that you said a minute ago? You read me something?
The government have introduced safer plans. Plans for keeping women
Yeah,
safer.
and then they've just announced that they're going to increase or double the financing for this project, which is called the Safer Streets Initiative or something like that, which essentially means more street lamps, more CCTV cameras, and more police. And this is designed to assuage the fears which are being, you know, raised by this murder which has happened, women feeling afraid on the streets. But it's sort of, just from my point of view, it's one of those classic Tory things where they want to do a gesture to show, or to try to show that they are doing everything that they can, you know, to meet the demand. And but again, all it involves in their kind of simple-minded logic is just more police, more cameras. And these are all indicators, very strong indicators, of a police state. I mean, that is literally what it is. At the moment, it seems to me that there is a compliance and a collusion, you know, a cooperation between the police chiefs and the government themselves. Like, these kind of powers are the powers that police have wanted for a long time. And I think it's probably mostly to do with the Extinction Rebellion, people blocking up roads and things like that. Anyway, that's all I'm saying for now. And just very quickly to round off that point that I'm making about the police state and everything like that. A consistent theme throughout this government's behaviour and their talking is public safety, keeping the public safe. Now obviously on the surface of that, how can you argue with that? But there obviously needs to be a balance between health and safety, public safety, and basic justice and freedom and liberty. Because you could clamp up the whole country and make it terrible, make it hell for everybody, all in the name of public safety. And another thing that you should realise, I want to point out, is that public safety is always the rhetorical phrase that they use in all fascist governments throughout history. Going back, like, this is what Napoleon did. All of the things he put in place, it was always to protect the public, or to keep the public safe. And this is the same for like terrorism legislation and things like that. It's always to keep the public safe. And obviously this coronavirus thing is a big example of that. Everything is about public safety. But again, if you're just going to use that as like a catch-all justification for every piece of legislation that you want to put in, no matter how harsh or draconian or against rights it is, you could justify all of it by saying it's health and safety. But again, like I say, there must surely have to be a balance between public safety and basic freedom and justice and liberty, and like freedom to move and act and all the things that, you know, we take for granted in a democracy. And I just wanted to make that point. And another update quickly, further to what I just said, they have now also announced immediate steps aimed at improving safety for women and girls, include an additional 25 million for better lighting and CCTV, yes, and a pilot scheme to put plain clothes officers in pubs and clubs. Here, that's the BBC. Pilot scheme to put plain clothes officers in pubs and clubs. Secret police. in pubs and clubs, in the name of keeping people safe, and also, ironically, because it was actually a police officer who murdered this woman that's kind of kicked off all of this whole thing. And, you know, not to mention the fact that now you're going to have to be suspicious of everybody in a pub or a club. Are they a police? Are they a plainclothes police officer? Could they get you or do something or make a report about something if you say or do something? Everybody you speak to, you might potentially be speaking to a police officer. And so maybe I wonder, should you ask people, are you a police officer? You know, that's like pubs and clubs. Pubs particularly, this is like the heart of the English people, you know. It's like the English home, the English church, as it were, going to the pub. And now we're going to have a government scheme to put plainclothes officers dotted around them. That's great. That's great.